Today we're with John Pelham from Interstate Roofing Siding Division. Welcome.
Thank you.
We're going to talk a little bit about siding, and I know that siding's a pretty big investment, so as a homeowner I want to make sure I protect my investment. So can you kind of walk us through some of the things that we should be looking at as far as the wear and tear, caulking, and maybe we start up at the top?
Sure, that'd be fantastic, especially with the rainy season that's coming on us. We want to be more aware of how our home is going to respond to that weather.
Great.
And one of the main things is where roofing happens to come in contact with the sidewall of your siding, there really needs to be a gap between where that siding and that roofing meet.
Okay.
If there isn't a gap, then when that water, that rainwater sits there and runs down that roof, it is constantly in contact with that bottom edge, that leading edge of the siding, and that can absorb moisture and then wick back up into the siding and then cause a lot of rot and decay.
So the gap's going to allow any moisture to flow through.
To drain off
down
of that and get away from there so that the ambient wind can dry that up.
Right.
And so that's a real big concern.
Okay.
The other thing too is, as you see on the tops of these windows, you've got some metal flashing. That's a Z flashing that comes down behind the siding out over the horizontal plane of this window and or doors. And or stoops, and then it protrudes back over the top in a Z fashion here.
Is it caulked on top of the flashing or not?
Well, actually, that's a good question, because actually it's only caulked in the two outside corners.
Okay.
Those are called end dams, and those prevent the moisture from wicking back in and draining back in behind the siding in those corners.
Okay.
But you leave a gap between those corners so that the siding itself does not sit right down onto the flashing, and then again do the same thing as it did up on the roof, where it would be in contact with the water and then wick that up and cause a rot situation.
Okay, so then along the sides of the window casing?
Yes, now in this particular case here, then as you come down the window trim or the window casing, then you want to have that sealed and caulked. There are many times the first line of defense and the only line of defense is the caulking itself.
Okay.
And so if in an older home you have this kind of a situation, you don't have the flanges that come out like, say, a new vinyl window would have. And so this caulking is very critical, and it will separate over time, and it becomes a maintenance issue for the homeowner. And the homeowner really needs to pay attention to that each and every year. Just take a quick cursory walk through, and you'll be able to spot those. You'll be able to run your caulking right down in there and protect those trim sides.
And what type of caulking are we using?
Well, a Sonaborn TX1 is a fantastic flexible caulking. A quad caulking is another brand, and that's an elastomeric caulking, something that gives you flexibility.
Okay. And then coming along to the corners?
Well, the outside corners, many times in the old days what they did was they cut a compound cut, which then ended up separating. So then manufacturers decided, well, wait a second, maybe we should put a metal piece on there so that we didn't have to worry about that separation. Well, then we got away and we got into an outside corner, a two-piece or a single-piece outside corner. And the way that really works is, for a while there, they were putting them on top of the siding. Well, that left gaps where wind could drive rain in.
Sure.
And if the house wrap underneath the vapor barrier wasn't wrapped around those corners, you could have an outside corner compromise where that sheathing underneath or the Dutch lap material underneath would then create a problem, give you some rot. So here's what we do here is we typically now it's standard to install the trim first and then run your siding up to the trim and then caulk that off.
So butts up against it and then caulk.
Excuse me, you bet.
Great. So then moving down, so we have faucets and other things coming out of the side?
Right. Now here you've got a faucet bib and you have a trim block that goes around that. Now in this particular case, since the faucet was existing and the client did not want to go and have a plumber come and pull that all out, you have to run a split block, as opposed to many times you can just run a full block and then the pipe goes back through. So what you have here, though, is it's very similar to an outside corner in that it goes on, the siding comes up to it, and you caulk that off on the side. But you also have the same situation as you do above a window or above a door where you have your Z flashing put in place, and you have the end dams caulked here at the ends with the gap before, so that this prevents the water from running back behind, but also protects the horizontal plane of the wood member.
So it's important to know that was done for a reason, it wasn't missed.
Exactly.
So, good.
That's exactly right.
So then backing up a little bit, then we have some flashing on the staircase.
Yes, and the flashing on the staircase does the same kinds of things. These flashings are very similar in what their main function is, and that is to prevent water from seeping back into the structure, yet give it an opportunity to protect that penetration and ward water off and not let it sit on something that would rot.
Okay. So finally we're getting down to the base now on the bottom. So what are we looking for here?
Well, here actually, you really don't look for much in this particular case on the siding itself, but you do want to look for the ground, the shrubbery. In many cases, the home, the ground surface is much higher.
And it may have good contact.
Right, and we don't want ground to siding or exterior cladding contact. We want a minimum of 6 inches away from that so that the moisture from the ground doesn't wick back up, of course, into the siding. Oftentimes you get shrubbery around the sides where people have sprinkler systems going, and when those sprinkler systems are constantly pounding the house and the siding, that's an issue as well.
Right. John, these are all great tips. I appreciate the information and recommend everybody out there take a look at your siding, protect your investment. And if you have any particular questions, you might want to talk to the professionals at Interstate Roofing Siding Division.
Thank you.
Thank you.